Good evening and welcome to As It Is Written. I'm your hostess, Tamara Israel, and on behalf of everyone who assists in the production of As It Is Written, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. Again, my name is Tamara Israel, and with me today in the studio is Miss Johanna Israel, welcome, and Miss Samara Israel, welcome to the show. Tonight, our show is entitled Covenants and Promises, and we're going to focus directly tonight on the New Covenant. You all may know it as the New Testament. But actually, the word testament is not a good translation because there were two major covenants made. And if you watched our show last week, you heard a lot about the Old Covenant and several other covenants and promises that were made with the Hebrew Israelites. Yahweh always said that you only have I known of all the families of the earth. And the Israelites, today known as the so-called Negro, are who he made his covenants and promises with. And that's the reason we're in captivity today, is because we did not keep those contracts, because that's exactly what a covenant is. It's just like today, if you go and sign on the dotted line saying that you will take whatever service or goods and you will pay so much, and you fail on that covenant or promise, they can come and take away the goods and services that they provided. So it's the same way with Yahweh. He made promises and covenants with our people, and we fail to obey those covenants. But what I want you to realize tonight in our show is that we're going to talk about the grace and the salvation that comes in the new covenant. So without further ado, I'd first like to share with the audience what a covenant is. So let me go ahead and pull that out. And this is taken from a biblical encyclopedia called Insight of the Scriptures. And on the word covenant, it states, if you give me a moment to get there. I would have had this open if I'd known we were starting so early. Okay. Can anybody go ahead and get started on that? Okay, I've got it. All right, covenant. An agreement between two or more persons to do or refrain from doing some act, a compact, a contract. The Hebrew word berith, whose etymology is uncertain, appears over 280 times in the Hebrew Scriptures. More than 80 times of these occurrences are in the first 5 books of Moses. That its basic meaning is covenant, comparable to our modern legal word contract, is seen from cuneiform tablets found in 1927, an ancient non-Israelite city of southeast Hamath. The contents of the 2 tablets are simple. It simply means contract. So 2 people entered into a contract, and that became a binding covenant. So again, there are many covenants made in the Scriptures, and what we'd like to point out tonight is that we are still under those covenants, especially we as Hebrew Israelites of the tribe of Yehudah. So without further ado, let's get into one of the major covenants. As a matter of fact, the Scriptures calls it the everlasting covenant. Let's talk about the Sabbath covenant.
Well, the Sabbath was the covenant that you just spoke of. I want to pick that up in reading from it, Exodus 31, and I'm going to start that around verse 13, I believe. Exodus 31. I'm in Genesis, so I'll switch over to Exodus. In Exodus 31, it's going to deal with exactly what he told us. Okay. In 31 and 13, it states, Speak you also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh that does sanctify you. Mm-hmm. So this was the covenant that Yahweh set up between himself and Israel as a sign. Okay. This was to let everyone know, and us also, that we were Israel. We were special unto him. Mm-hmm. The Sabbath day was also one of the first things that was blessed and sanctified. Okay. I want to pick that up in Genesis. If we go to Genesis 2, and I think it starts at 1. Verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. Mm-hmm. And Elohim blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which Elohim had created and made. Mm-hmm. So this day was blessed, both blessed and sanctified. Sanctified meaning set aside. Right. And it was to be shown as a sign also. Okay. So truly this day was a special day to his people and to Yah. Mm-hmm. And also, there's a lot of different instances throughout the scriptures that he speaks on the Sabbath day, that it would be a day for refreshment.
Right.
It would be a day that you must keep it holy. He actually even tells us exactly how to keep it holy. And that's when you go back to the Ten Commandments. And it tells you exactly how it should be kept.
Okay.
Because throughout the scriptures, Yah doesn't leave anything up to interpretation, as we know. So he gives us specifically what should and should not be done in order for it to be kept holy, in addition to setting it aside as a whole day of holy convocation.
Okay. Samara, Jonna just pointed out that this was a sign between the Hebrew Israelites and Yahweh, and not only us, but any of the strangers or other nations who would take hold to our ways. And she mentioned the Ten Commandments, which obviously is that first covenant that people think that we're no longer under. Talk about the Sabbath in the Ten Commandments. What does the Scripture say about that? Because, you know, when you ask people, well, do you keep, you know, the Ten Commandments? Even if they don't keep all of the law code, they think that they're keeping the Ten Commandments.
Right.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, it kind of makes you wonder, you know, how so many people get it mixed up and start really keeping the first day of the week or Sunday as Yahweh's Sabbath, knowing, you know, what the law states. And if I just pick that up quickly, it's in the book of Exodus chapter 20, and that one starts on verse 8. It says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor any stranger that is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it." I mean, this is something that Yahweh holds dear. I mean, this is the first thing, like my sister stated, that he's sanctified and made holy for his people. And, you know, even when you look at our holy days, which are, a lot of them are Sabbaths as well, and you can pick that up in the book of Leviticus chapter 23, speaking of all of the holy days that Yahweh set aside. And these things were a perpetual covenant that we were to keep. And if I can just pick up quickly, piggybacking on what my sister read out of Exodus chapter 31, and I'm going to read verse 16. "Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant," meaning that this is something that you're going to do always, you and your children after you, for generations to come.
Exactly, exactly. Okay. Let me share with our audience some scripture in Isaiah 24, because, you know, what we've discovered is this did not just take place with the giving of the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. This was something that was set up from the beginning. Now, listen to this. This is in Isaiah chapter 24, and I'm going to pick it up at verse 4. It says, "The earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languish and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant," which is the Sabbath. "Therefore has the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left." You can't get around. This is prophecy. And we look at the state of the earth today, and we see that these are the reasons why. Number one, they have changed the everlasting covenant. Let's talk a little bit about that changing of that covenant. And obviously this was a Christian thing that came along. And hopefully our camera can pick up this picture of Constantine, who was the changer of the Sabbath day.
Well, we all know that. We know that Constantine he studied under Mithra, and that was sun worship, and that's why he changed the everlasting Sabbath day to Sunday, the day of the sun. Here in the Encyclopedia Britannica, it states Constantine enjoined Sunday rest from labor except agricultural. So he allowed the only work to be done on Sunday to be agricultural work, that of gathering fruits, vegetables, etc. But it says he's even recorded that Constantine used violence to enforce his new law, because the seventh day Sabbath is still being observed by true servants of Yahweh. Now, if you would seem blasphemous for people to change their day of worship today, how would you think Elohim and Elohim's true servants felt when this man changed theirs?
Wow, wow, that's
so
great.
he actually changed it for that. for that reason.
Okay, thank you very much. How about in the New Covenant, in the New Testament, which is what it's called today? Did they keep the Sabbath? I mean, any scriptures that share that Yahshua, the apostles, or the early church for that matter, kept this holy covenant as it stated?
Throughout the scriptures, you'll see that the Messiah kept the Sabbath. Even after his death, they were still keeping the Sabbath. There was a lot of times people take instance for the fact that he rose from the dead on the first day of the week, and that's what it states in the epistles.
Right.
But that has nothing to do with keeping the Sabbath. That means that he did just what it stated. He rose on the first day of the week. So the reason, using that as reasoning to change the Sabbath has no validity whatsoever.
Right, because even with that same statement, once he was crucified, it was dawning towards Friday evening, and they hurried to get his body off the cross to entomb it, and they rested the Sabbath day.
Exactly.
So if they were doing that at that time, when did he nail everything to the cross? You would think that at least his mother and his, the people closest to him would have known that changed.
Right.
But it's not true. I believe it's in Matthew where the Messiah said, "Think not that I've come to destroy the law or the prophets. I've not come to destroy, but to fulfill."
Right.
And he did. He fulfilled everything that was written in him, about him in the law and the prophets. He didn't come to change anything. And he said, heaven and earth shall pass away, but not one jot or one tittle of the law shall pass until it is all fulfilled.
Right.
Well, we're still sitting here. We're still slaves, so obviously all of the law has not been fulfilled, because in the law it states that we would become slaves, but we would become free from our captivity, and that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'd like to read one more thing about the Sabbath day, if I could, out of the book of Isaiah, chapter 58. And I'm going to start with verse 13, and it says, "If you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of Yahweh, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words, then shall you delight yourself in Yahweh, and I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed you with the heritage of Jacob, your father. For the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it." But like we find, this is the day we're supposed to be resting and coming together, to read out of the law and the prophets. But this is the day that everybody does everything else but
Right.
that.
Absolutely.
Businesses are open, making the most money of the week on the Sabbath day. People are out cooking, cleaning, doing whatever they want to do on the Sabbath
As
day.
a matter of fact, there's a saying called TGIF, thank God it's Friday. And when sundown Friday, people are wide open, doing everything but observing Yahweh's holy day. But you read, it's a sign between me and you. It's those who keep his covenants and promises that he's going to save. Those who don't, he's going to destroy, and it's written. So you've got a choice to make, and we still do here today, because when we talk about what was written and King Solomon wrote, and also Moses wrote, that if even while we're here as slaves in this strange land, if we turn away our foot from these things and begin to observe Yahweh's laws, statutes, and judgments, then he will hear, and he will save us. So, what do you want? Do you want to continue to do what Constantine said? Even though 2,000 years ago, he put people to death that would not change from worshiping on the Sabbath day. So, death shouldn't bother us, and it doesn't, because we're going to do what thus saith Yahweh.
Exactly. I mean, we've talked about the Sabbath day. We talked about how it was sanctified. The first thing set aside, sanctified, a day of rest. My sister just read about the fact that that you delight yourself in Yahweh and ride upon the high places of the earth. And once again, here in Isaiah, this is a couple chapters back, 56 and verse 1, it says, "Blessed is the man that does this, and the son of man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil." So continuously throughout the scriptures, it states and tells us, Yahweh tells us how important keeping his covenant, this everlasting covenant is.
Exactly. Absolutely. And is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath?
Most
Absolutely.
certainly.
But that doesn't mean you have to change it. And that's what Yahshua showed. Every Sabbath, he was in some synagogue or in the temple in Jerusalem, standing up to read out of the book of the law and the prophets and to worship Yah. So if you talk about service of Yah, that's so very, very important. His holy day.
That's right.
So when do you turn around? How long do you obey man and not Yahweh? Thinking that you're obeying Yahweh by sitting in someone's church on the first day of the week. it's really an abomination.
It is.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. We talked about that Sabbath covenant. Now let's go into the covenant or the promise that he made with King David. Let's talk about what that was all about and how it's significant to this new covenant.
Well, we can pick that up coming out of the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 7.
Okay.
And I'm going to start reading. Well, first of all, we know it started out as David desired to build Yahweh a house. And Yahweh says back to him, chapter 7, verse 8, "Now therefore, so shall you say unto my servant David, thus says Yahweh of hosts, I took you from the sheepcote, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people Israel." And I'm going to jump down to verse 12. "And when your days be fulfilled, and you shall sleep with your fathers, I will set up your seed after you, which shall proceed out of your bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men, and with the stripes of the children of men. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before me. And your house and your house and your kingdom shall be established forever before you. Your throne shall be established forever." Now this was a covenant that Yahweh made with David, that it would be of the fruit of his bowels, his son, his own flesh and blood, that would sit upon his throne and be king forever.
Right.
Now we know that he had a son, Solomon, David did, but he's not living forever, is he?
No.
He's not still sitting as king. He was a king, but he wasn't speaking of that son. He was speaking of Yahshua, who is our Messiah.
Exactly.
In addition to that, we know that King Solomon fell from Yah's ways, stopped doing his ways.
And after him caused the nation to be split.
Exactly. I wanted to pick up also, and also dealing with King David and the covenant made with him by Yah. This is in Psalms 132.
Okay.
And I'm going to pick it up at verse 10. And it says, "For thy servant David's sake," or David's sake, "turn not away the face from thine anointed. For Yahweh hath sworn in truth unto David, and he will not turn from it. Of the fruit of his body will he set upon thy throne. If thy children will keep my covenant and my testimony that I shall teach them, their children shall also sit upon thy throne forevermore. For Yahweh has chosen Zion, he hath desired it for his habitation. This is my rest forever. Here I will dwell, for I have desired it. I will abundantly bless her provision. I will satisfy her poor with bread." And it goes on from there. But truly, this, just like my sister stated, this was a covenant set aside with King David.
Right.
That it would be the fruit of his loins,
And I
that
believe,
being the Messiah.
Absolutely. And I believe that David went on after he was given this great covenant, this great blessing, to say, "Who am I in my house that you've thought about me for a great while to come?" He knew that it wasn't going to be his descendants that he had right there, but it still would be a son. And that's the mystery of Yahshua, David's seed being implanted into Mary's womb, because Yahshua had to be the son of David. Yahshua himself said, "I am the root and offspring of David, the bright and morning star." He mentioned that in Revelations. And I'd like to read in the book of Acts, because, again, people still cannot conceive that he was the literal, actual, from his own bowel, the son of David. But in Acts chapter 2, I'm going to pick it up in Acts chapter 2, verse 25, and it states, "For David speaketh concerning the Adonai, I foresaw the Adonai always before my face, for he is on my right hand, that I should not be moved. Therefore did my heart rejoice, and my tongue was glad. Moreover also my flesh shall rest in hope. Because you will not leave my soul in the grave, neither will you suffer your Holy One to see corruption." And then it goes on to say, "Men and brethren, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us unto this day. Therefore, being a prophet, and knowing that Yahweh had sworn with an oath to him, that of the fruit of his loins, according to the flesh, he would raise up the Messiah to sit on his throne. He, seeing this before, spoke of the resurrection of the Messiah, that his body, or his soul, was not left in the grave, neither his flesh did see corruption. That tells
Point
it all.
blank.
Absolutely. It was his own son. Although Mary and Joseph came from the lineage of David, Yeshua had to be his son. And then when you go into Luke, because people go, well, no, Mary didn't know who her father was, who the father of her baby was. Yeah, she knew. Today you may not know, but Mary knew. And let me pick that up in Luke chapter 2. Let's see, Luke chapter 2, and this is when the angel Gabriel comes in to share with Mary this good news. And chapter 1, Luke chapter 1. The angel says unto her, verse 30, and the angel said unto her, fear not, Mary, for you have found favor with Yah. And behold, you shall conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Yeshua. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of Yah. And Yahweh Elohim shall give unto him the throne of his father David. I mean, how much more simpler can that get?
Right.
Verse 33, and he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there shall be no end. So what we're expecting is King David's son, Yeshua, to come back to this earth, set up the kingdom back in Jerusalem, sitting on his father's throne to rule forever.
Praise God.
And it's as simple as that. But people do not know about this covenant because it's not being taught in the churches.
Exactly.
It blows their whole doctrine. It really does.
Absolutely.
And they never think of Yeshua being the actual son of King David.
Never.
Never.
You
Flesh
never
and
hear
blood.
that.
Right.
Okay, and there are many other scriptures that we can go to prove this very subject. Definitely read in Jeremiah, because Jeremiah, and I think we're going to read a little bit in that, but in that new covenant, he tells them that David will never want a man to sit on his throne, because he will always have him. As a matter of fact, Yeshua is still right now in the heavens, sitting on the right hand of Elohim on his father's throne. So, regardless of what the Europeans say, Yeshua is sitting on his father's throne, and it will be reestablished on the earth.
Absolutely.
All righty. Let's get into what is now called the New Covenant, because this is truly a mystery to people who go to church, Christians, because they say, I'm under the New Covenant. They won't even read the Old Testament because they're under the New Covenant. What is the New Covenant?
Well, let's, like you said, you pick it up in a lot of different places. Okay, let's pick it up in Jeremiah 31 to begin with.
Okay.
And I'll pick it up at 31. Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant, excuse me, with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband to them, saith Yahweh. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, saith Yahweh. For I will forgive their iniquity, and will remember no more their sin. Thus saith Yahweh, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon, and the stars by a light by night, which divideth the sea and the waves thereof. Yahweh of hosts is his name. So Yahweh states here, lets us know, for those people, like you said, who believe that Christ has nailed the law to the cross. It states right here in the New Covenant, he is going to place those in our inward parts, write them in our hearts. Why would he write them in our hearts and our inward parts if they've been nailed to the cross?
Right. You don't have to do it anymore.
Exactly. And if the Messiah himself has already stated that not a jot nor a tittle of the law will be done away with until all is fulfilled.
Exactly.
It just doesn't mesh. It doesn't go together.
Okay.
So truly, they're not reading for exactly what it's stating. It's telling us there's no interpretation needed. So truly, that is the New Covenant. New Covenant is when Yahweh places these things. We won't have to struggle to be able to keep these things anymore, what we do now, because everything is against us. But we will be able to do that in the future because he will be placing it inside.
All right. Now, you've read this in the Old Testament or Old Covenant. Let's read it in the New.
Please.
For our doubting naysayers out there. Let's see what the New says.
In the book of Hebrews, chapter 8, and I'm going to start at verse 7. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he said, Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Again, with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah.
Not with the Christians.
That's right.
Not with the Europeans.
With the same people he made the first one with.
Absolutely.
Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, which is why we're here as slaves. And I regarded them not, says Yahweh. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, says Yahweh. I will put my laws into their mind and I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their heart. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh. For all shall know me, from the least to the greatest.
Praise Yah.
Now that sounds like an exact duplicate of what was just read in the Old Covenant. Exact duplicate.
Word for word.
Word for word. So that goes towards the Christians who want to negate that of the Old Testament, and it goes to our brothers, the Hebrew Israelites, that do not believe in the Messiah.
Right.
If you see it written in the Old and you see it written in the New, how can you discount it?
Absolutely.
I can't see it.
Absolutely. I'd like to invite our audience to join us tonight by giving us a phone call. Our phone number is 404-892-5614. You're welcome to call us, talk to us about what you've been taught as far as this new covenant is concerned. And now that we've read to you what the new covenant is all about, hopefully you'll begin to understand that if you are of another nation, the only way you can enjoin yourself to this covenant is to enjoin yourself to the ways and the laws of Yahweh and be as the Hebrews are. So there's one law for all.
Exactly. One law for all.
Absolutely.
I also want to just deal with the whole idea of a covenant.
Okay.
Because in this world of lies and half-truths, myth-truths, and deceptions, people don't really understand a promise or a covenant, something sacred that is going to be kept. Because everything these days is broken. From politicians. We're so accustomed to politicians getting, everybody's so happy for them. They get in and immediately they break it. But we understand, because that's the way it happens. Marriage, just like you said, the exact same thing. We even lie to our children. And that's that whole, Santa Claus thing. And it's okay.
Right.
It's no problem with that. Everyone thinks, as a matter of fact, they think you're wrong if you don't lie to them. So in this world of lies, the fact that that's why, one of the reasons why people can't quite understand a covenant, a true covenant. Yahweh said he would keep this with his people, with his people, the Hebrews. And that's why they want to say that the Hebrews were cast away.
Right.
But what does the Apostle Paul say? Were they cast away? Absolutely
God
not.
forbid.
God forbid. God forbid.
Right. You made a good point when you read in Hebrews, because it said, for finding fault with them. There's nothing wrong with the covenant. Actually, the covenant, if it had been done, would bring us life and the resurrection from the dead, if it had been kept. It was wrong. It was something wrong with our forefathers. We didn't have the heart and the spirit of Yah to keep those lofty goals. And here we are, suffering for it day by day. But it's nothing wrong with the old covenant. That was a covenant of salt. Keeping of the 10 Commandments is great. We still have to keep it. The early church, Yeshua, the apostles, were examples that we have to keep it. So what was abolished with this law? What did Yeshua bring in terms of a new way for us?
Well, it was the animal sacrifices that were done away with. And that's what our fathers stumbled on, because as long as you had sheep and bull and ox to sacrifice, you could break any law that you want to, as long as you had enough animals to sacrifice to cover it. But now that the Messiah has come, he died one time.
Right.
And that's it. And you'll be forgiven for those sins that are past, but everything you do from then on is written down, and you must be judged by it.
Exactly.
So, and that's what a lot of our people stumbled on at that time of the apostles, and that's what they were trying to teach, is that you don't have to keep killing those animals. The Messiah has come, he has died, he has raised. It's just believing in him, that he covers those sins that are past, being baptized in his name, and get back on to keeping these laws and let go of all the stuff that the Gentiles has taught us. And that's what that was about, taking away. That's what he nailed to the cross. Right. It was those animal sacrifices.
And I want to pick up just what my sister was speaking on in Hebrews. This is Hebrews 10:4.
Okay.
And it states, for it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats should take away sins. When he cometh into the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering wouldest you not, but a body hast thou prepared for me. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin you have first had no pleasure. Then said I, Lo, I come. In the volume of the book it is written, to do thy will. And I want to skip on down, and it says, let me see. Then he said, Lo, I come to do thy will, O Elohim. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second.
Right.
And it states in 10, by the which we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yeshua the Anointed once and for all. So after we come under that baptism in Yeshua the Anointed's namesake, not Jesus Christ or any of those other things.
God.
God, exactly, Lord, and all that kind of stuff. Once that, then we are responsible for those sins created after that. Prior to, they're washed away.
Absolutely. We have a phone call. Caller, thanks so much for holding. State your name and your question or comment. Do we have that caller? Okay, we can't hear him in the studio. Okay, caller, we're going to try to get you in. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'd like to commend you ladies on your wisdom and your knowledge. I've often watched the program. One thing, I only have a small observation. Is it possible that you could put the verses that you quote up on the screen when you are quoting the verses from the scriptures? Sometimes I like to keep up with you, and I'll get lost as to
where we are.
Where you are.
Okay.
So that's just a little observation, but I really enjoy your program.
Great.
And I commend you on your wisdom and your knowledge.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. We think that's a great suggestion. We may not be able to do it tonight, but in the future we'll try to get here a little earlier so we can share that. But a lot of this just comes from the Spirit, actually, and we're into it, and we share these scriptures, so forgive us, but we will try to at least share the scripture that we're going to and the verses that we're reading. And if you have your books open, just try to, follow along with us, but we will try to do more of getting those up on the screen for you. Okay, let me just read this, because people always talk about Yeshua is the Lamb of God, and that he nailed the law to the cross. Well, he only nailed the judgment to the cross. Something had to die. Blood had to be shed in order for sin to be covered under the old covenant. Well, it's the same with the new. And Johnny, you just read that the blood of bulls and goats were no longer good. They were no longer credible to cover a man's sin. So a man had to die. And that's why Yeshua is called the Lamb of Yah. That's why he was sacrificed on the Passover. Everything according to the law. So if you call yourself a Christian, that simply means that you follow Yeshua. And then you should be doing the same things he was doing. You should understand that he did away with those sacrifices. And now you are washed, now you are clean. But then in the book of Galatians, I believe, or in the book of Romans, Paul asks, so now that we're washed, should we sin? Continue in sin? And the answer is what? God forbid. How can we who are dead to sin live any longer therein? So you still have to constantly get up day by day and struggle in this world that is completely engulfed in sin to not sin. We've got another caller on the line. Caller, thanks for joining us. State your name and your question or comment.
Hello?
Yes.
You say that they should be Christians, that they should follow the way of Yeshua. So what do you call your religion?
Okay, good question. Anybody want to pick that up? What do we call our religion?
Well, just like you said, follow the ways of Yeshua. What did Yeshua say that he was? Yeshua said he was a Jew.
Right.
So that is what we're doing.
And in terms of religion, we don't have a religion. The law is a way of life. Religions are something that came up new, and they came up to devise man. Satan is very clever. So that's why you have all these religions, these doctrines, these different sects of Christianity and different sects of Islam and atheism, and you can go on and on, Hindu, Buddhism. It's just a way to divide and conquer. But this is not a religion. The scripture is pure, it's simple, it is what your Father, your Holy Father said for you to do, and you have to walk therein. So the law covers everything. Who you marry, how you go to church, what you do when you go to church, when you go to church, everything in your life, how you make business contracts, it's all covered in the law. So this isn't a religion, it's a way of life. Now in terms of who we are, as the Messiah was, Hebrew Israelites. spiritual Hebrew Israelites or New Covenant Hebrew Israelites because we believe we've been baptized in the blood of Yahshua. Did y'all want to add to that?
If you do research on the word religios, I've done it some time back, and excuse me, hopefully I'm getting this correct.
Okay.
Religios, and I think that's the proper correct
Right.
pronunciation.
Greek term.
The Greek term, exactly, and it means confusion.
Correct.
Therefore, religion is confusion in and of
Confusion.
itself.
Absolutely. Did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, and I mean, the thing that we're really trying to teach is that if you profess to be a Christian, which is supposed to mean a follower of Christ, then do just that. I mean, he kept the laws of Yahweh, and he kept all of them unto his death, even through his death. So that's what we're trying to say. If you're saying that you're a Christian or a follower of Christ, we're just trying to reiterate what it is he stood for and how he walked in the law.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. Christians always say that, that the Jews lost it, because obviously, here we are in captivity, but did we really lose it? Is there any scriptures in the New Testament that points to whether or not Yahweh cast off his chosen people? Because that's the statement that's going around today. The Jews were cast off, and now this is open to everybody, but what about this new covenant? We've already said that was made with the Israelites. Let's talk a little bit about these, whether Israel really did get cast off or if they still have all the blessings and the covenants to them.
Okay, we can pick up two things quickly. First thing I wanted to pick up was just back up of what you just said coming from out of Romans 9.
Okay.
Romans chapter 9 and verse 4. Let me pick up verse 3. And this is Paul speaking. He says, "For I wish that I myself were accursed from the Messiah, for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of Elohim, and the promises," which is what we're talking about, covenants and promises, "whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, the Anointed One came, who is over all, Yahweh blessed forever, amen." Now, this was who he came to seal this covenant with.
Right.
And then he goes on to say in Romans chapter 11, "I say then, has Yahweh cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Yah has not cast away his people whom he foreknew. Know you not what the scripture says of Eliah, how he make intercession to Elohim against Israel, saying, Yahweh, they have killed your prophets and digged down your altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what says the answer of Yahweh unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal," which is who we are, remnants, who are not keeping the ways of Satan, but keeping the ways of Yahweh. So he hasn't cast away his people. We're just blinded for a time.
Absolutely. How can he cast away those whom he foreknew? That's why he made this new covenant with us, because there's going to come a time when those he chose, it's like he said, you only, of all the families of the earth have I known. And he also mentioned in Deuteronomy, I think it's the last book of Deuteronomy, the fact that the secret things belong to us and our children. Those that are revealed were revealed to our people. We didn't do what was told, but that does not mean that Yahweh was not still the apple of his eye. And his protective eye is still on us, even though we've gone through so much hell. He's going to redeem us from all this.
Praise Yah.
And we have a few more minutes. We're going to take a break for our PSA announcement, actually our news report. So we'll be back with you afterwards. Thanks so much.
Greetings, this is your brother Matt Gilman Yisrael in the news on As It Is Written. In the shortest month of this year, which is supposed to be the time that Hebrew Israelites renamed Afro-Americans are supposed to reflect on and learn more about their heritage and history. Reference 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Question: does anyone know who started Black History Week? Later to be called in the 60s, now known as Black History Month? Well, this self-educated individual pioneered the way for others that were and are committed to the studies of the so-called African American. In 1926, Black History Week became a reality in which the founder wrote later in his 1933 best-selling book that if the Negro is to be elevated, he must be educated in the sense of being developed for what he is. Furthermore, no one can be thoroughly educated until he learns as much about the Negro as he knows about other people. This small passage was taken from the book of The Miseducation of the Negro, written by the founder of Black History Week, Carter G. Woodson, which began in the second month of 1926, now called Black History Month. Also in the news, just last month, Sins of the Fathers was aired on cable TV, which gave light to the racial injustices that were exhibited by ex-Klansmen who have taken part in the 1963 bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, which was recorded as one of the most grotesque murders during the Civil Rights era, in which the blacks claimed the lives of 4 young black girls. That same week of the airing of that cable TV movie, an Alabama Circuit Court judge ruled the members of the Klan are competent to stand trial for the murders. It is also important to point out that, according to FBI reports, the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, which was known as a paramilitary terror squad in Mississippi, committed 9 murders, 75 church bombings, and at least 300 bombings and assaults towards blacks within a 5-year span during the 60s. These are things that we should remember, lest we forget. But woe to those who have heavily laid the yoke upon Yahweh's chosen nation of people. Whosoever has touched the apple of Yahweh's eye, as it is written, they shall be recompensed. For vengeance is mine, saith the Lord Yahweh. And before closing in the news, I have just a couple of notables in our black history. Abraham, the first to give a circumcision. Jacob, who wrestled with an angel and was blessed. Deborah, first judge of Israel. King David, who was named well-beloved of Yahweh, and his son, King Solomon, one of the wisest men ever to live. Next week on As It Is Written, I'll have more for you during this Black History Month, which every day should be a part of Black history. Thank you for looking in on As It Is Written in the news. This is Brother Maskell. Peace and hallelujah.
Take the call, then we'll go to you. Thank you, and welcome back to As It Is Written. Our show tonight is entitled The New Covenant, Covenants and Promises that Yahweh made that we can reiterate and show you in the New Testament that those covenants and promises were still with one race of people, the Hebrew Israelites, and those of other nations who take hold upon them. We have another caller holding. Caller, thanks so much for hanging on. We'd like you to state your name and your question or comment. Speak up a little louder, sir.
Good evening. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you.
My name is Gurma.
Okay.
I'm from Ethiopia.
Okay.
I'm always listening to my sister every Monday night. I will never miss those programs because that gives me a lot of conscious education.
Great.
I agree with you when it comes to the name of religion. And I agree with you. It's a way of life. It's not religion. Having church in every 5-6 blocks, just like a liquor store, and you just believing in what you do and how you live by example, not just by just going to church, the biggest church and all that stuff. So I agree with you, and I'm always enjoying your program, and then you are educating me every night.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, great. Johnny, you wanted to pick up something in the book of Isaiah. We talked about, has Yahweh cast away his chosen people, which is what the churches teach today, especially the Jehovah's Witness. Jews were cast off. We're it. We're the servants of Yah. Talk to us about that.
Okay, I want to pick that up in Isaiah 49 and start off at verse 13.
Isaiah 49:13.
Yes, 49.
For our audience.
Okay, and it says, Sing, O heavens, and be joyful, O earth, and break forth into singing, O mountains, for Yahweh hath comforted his people, and will have mercy upon his afflicted. But Zion said, Yahweh hath forsaken me, and my Adonai hath forgotten me. Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet I will not forget thee. Behold, I, being Yahweh, have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. So no, Yah has not forgotten his people. He said, even though a nursing mother may forget her child, he shall not.
Forget you.
We are graven on the palms of his hands.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, we've put to rest a lot of the false doctrine of the Christian church as it relates to the Jews. And we're not talking about those people that are set up in the land today. Make sure you understand that. They are imposters. Even the scriptures say they're imposters. The true Jews, when Christ returns, and we all know that his return is very imminent, especially once Europe sets up this one world order, and they're very close to doing that. They just introduced the euro. You know, anticipation is to do away with money altogether and institute a one world government. That's right around the corner. Christ has 3.5 more years, and he is going to come back and destroy that one world government. So we know that his return is imminent. But what people don't know is that Christ is not only king, but high priest. He had a dual role, and that dual role was prophesied many times in the scriptures. At first, it was talked about during the time of Abraham. As a matter of fact, when Abraham first came into the Holy Land, or Eden, which is the land from the Nile to the river Euphrates, he met a man called Melchizedek. And Melchizedek was the priest of the Most High and also king of Salem. Now, Salem is the very end of the word Yerushalayim, which means peace. So, Jerusalem means city of peace. Melchizedek was king and priest of the Most High back during the time of Abraham. And Yeshua is always said to be like Melchizedek. He is a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And I'd like to pick up in Psalms chapter 110, where David prophesied of this very act. So we're going to Psalms chapter 110, and I'm going to pick up, I'll pick it up at verse 4. Yahweh hath sworn and will not repent. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So that's where it was first prophesied that this son of David will be a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And we're going to hold that point. We do have another caller, and then we'll go into the New Testament to share that. Caller, thanks for holding. State your name, your question or comment.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I was calling, I have a question about, I was talking about the sacrifice earlier. You mentioned something about Muslims, like different sects of Muslims. And I was just letting you know, I want to ask you, if you go to Luke chapter 22, 43 to 44, Christ had prayed for him. The angel appeared to him. I'm going to read it for you. Then the angel appeared to him and strengthened him. And began in anger, he prayed more urgently. Then he shall become like sweat, like great drops of water. Said, go to Hebrews chapter 5 and 7. You'll read where God had saved Jesus Christ from death. You go to chapter 5, verse 7. It's right below in the order of Melchizedek. You'll see it right there.
Okay, I didn't quite get his point.
I heard Luke and then I heard Hebrews. Okay. 22.
Verse 42 to 43, and go to Hebrews chapter 5, verse 7.
Okay, and what's the point?
Well, God answered the prayer of Joshua.
Okay. Chapter 5, Hebrews 5, verse 7 says, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, was heard in that he feared.
Go ahead.
Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. And being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that call upon him, called of Yah and high priest after the order of Melchizedek. So you're going to scripture that I wanted to go to, but I still don't see your point. That doesn't mean he didn't die.
Well, back in Luke chapter 22, verse 43 and 44, when he prayed and when God was saying, thy will, let it be done.
Right.
But an angel appeared to strengthen him.
Right, but his will was done, and that is that Yeshua died. He had to die so that our nation could still be here. If he had not come and died, you and I would not be here today, because our race had become so filthy that only a sacrifice, a like sacrifice, could save us. So Yeshua truly did die, and that's what I mean by...
Get out of chapter 5, verse 7.
What chapter, brother?
Chapter 5, verse 7.
Luke chapter 5?
No, Hebrews chapter 5. 40 days in flesh, offer the prayer of supplication.
Okay, we read that.
Right. Paul was telling what Jesus did, offer the prayer of supplication. Only God can answer the prayer.
Right.
How did God save him from death?
Where do you read anywhere where he says he saved him from
chapter,
death?
Chapter 5,
He
verse
was
7.
able.
Okay, well, brother, we have a difference of opinion, because this is not saying that he saved him from death. Yeshua was afraid to die, and he did pray to Yahweh to save him, but he said, not my will, but your will be done. If you know the will of Yah, then you would know that a complete and perfect sacrifice had to come. And he knew that that was the reason he came. It doesn't mean he didn't fear death. But there was a time on the cross that he asked his father, well, why have you forsaken me? And that is the time that he answered his prayer and killed him. He was no longer up on that cross suffering. So it doesn't mean that he didn't die. And that, again, is false doctrine that is being perpetrated, obviously, by the Muslims, if that's who the sect that you belong to. And we're not here to try to debate about the scriptures or to put down any other sect. Our job is to tell the truth. And, you know, the old saying goes, the truth hurts. So, you know, if the truth hurts, if you can't deal with it, then that's one issue. But to come in here and to pick out a verse and say, well, you know, other people feel that this is when he was saved from death, when the entire New Testament and the Old backs up the fact that he had to die, I don't see any validity in that. Right. We do have another caller on hold. Okay, no caller. Go ahead.
Not to mention, in what the brother was referring to in verse 7, it says he was able to save him from death. That states he's able to. We know that Yah is able to do anything. That doesn't state that he did it.
Right.
That's the same thing scriptures state, that Yah is able. If he desire, he is able to bring up rocks and stones to take our place, to be Israelites. He has not done that.
Right.
That doesn't, just because he said is able to, does not mean that we are presently rocks and stones.
Exactly.
We're not.
And I think one of you read earlier where it says, lo, I come. In the volume of the book it is written to me to do your will. His will was, you go and die for your people, so I won't have to kill all those Negroes off.
Let me read one verse in this same book that he was reading, Luke 23 and 46. And when Yeshua had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit or my breath. And having said this, he gave up the ghost. He died.
Right.
He gave up his breath and he died.
Exactly. And they put him in a tomb.
Right.
Read all the scriptures. Don't just take a verse. Read everything. They put him in a tomb. 2 days later, they went back early, Sunday morning, and his body was not there. It had been resurrected from the grave. He was alive. In Luke chapter 24, he appeared to his apostles. He said, touch me, feel me. It is I myself. Spirits do not have flesh and bones as you see me have. So he said, you got any meat? Give me something to drink. He appeared. He disappeared. They knew that he had been resurrected. His body was incorruptible. We read that in Acts chapter 2 earlier. So I'm not sure when that brother tuned in, but he's missed the whole point. Yeshua had to die to save our people. As a matter of fact, one of the Sanhedrins, one of the rulers of our people at that time, said, you guys don't know what you do. It is needful that one die, that the whole nation not perish.
Right.
So I'm not sure. Okay, we've got about 3 minutes left. I want to get back into Hebrews, talking about Yeshua as this Melchizedek priest before we end the show tonight, because that's very, very important that Yahweh would take the two most important functions, the Levitical priesthood as well as the king, and make that one duty. And that lies with Yeshua. Although Yeshua did not spring from the tribe of Levi, he came under the Melchizedek order. He came from Yehuda. And that's exactly what the book of Hebrews says, if I can ever get to it. Okay. And I'm going to go back to where the brother was talking about in Hebrews chapter 5, I believe. 5 verse 1, it says, for every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to Yah, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sin, who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmity. And by reason hereof he ought, as for the people, so also for himself, to offer for sins. Verse 5. So also the Messiah glorified not himself to be made an high priest, but he that said unto him, You are my son, today have I begotten you. As he said also in another place, You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So, this is all sharing that Yahshua had that dual role of high priest. He not only became the sacrifice, but he is the giver of the prayers and atonements and asking for forgiveness of us when we sin. Because again, we can't kill any animals anymore. Right. So on the screen now, this painting saying modern Christianity's forgotten roots. People have forgotten where they've gotten all these doctrines. And if it's not Christianity, it's Islam. Johnny come lately's on the scene. Less than 500 years, or no more than 1,000, but we're going all the way back to 6,000 years of scripture that tells us what we must do. So again, the choice is yours. Do you continue to deal with these the Christian and Muslim doctrines, or do you deal with the scriptures word for word, line by line? And I think we've got a minute left, so I'd like to invite you to come out to the New Covenant Congregation of Israel. We're located at 3901A Covington Highway in Decatur, Georgia. Our phone number is 404-286-5869, and we do have a website. You can pick up our shows, our Sabbath classes, as well as order information. And that website is www.thencci.com. That's www.thencci.com. Thanks for joining us, and good night.